Hey everybody, welcome to the Jim Master Show Live Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show series. Our very special guest, Shelley Herman, is joining us from LA, from California. She's author of this incredible book by Peacock Tale, Secrets of an NBC Page. Yeah, it's going to be really an incredible conversation. We're both TV people ourselves. Hey gang, welcome to the show. Good to have you with us. Hope your day is going well, and we appreciate you being with us here on the Jim Masters Show live series. Now, if this is your first time watching our series, we welcome you. And if you'd like to interact while the show is live, you can do that. Just subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is Jim Masters TV. And when you do that, guess what happens? You can actually comment in what we call our JMS Lovity Hall. The Lovity Hall is actually a section that is right there on the channel. And that is a section where you guys can interact with one another, say hello to one another as you do, say hello to us. And it's called the Lovity Hall chat room because it gives you the opportunity to interact with us. And you guys know I'm an interactive host. So it's always a pleasure to have that opportunity to interact with you and to have each other interacting as well, exchanging recipes, baby photos, whatever you might be exchanging. Thanks for being with us. A real pleasure to have you here on the show today. And we're going to get right into it. Shelley is extraordinary. And I want to tell you a little bit about this riveting book. And I also want to tell you about the opportunity to get the book as well. First off, author Shelley Herman is an Emmy-nominated showbiz veteran, a longtime host, writer, producer, personality with decades of success on both sides of the camera. She's taking us back to the beginning of her career when she joined the famous NBC Studio Page program. My Peacock Tale, Secrets of an NBC Page, is the story of Shelley, her fellow pages who became lifelong friends, and the dizzying array of celebrities, hangers-on, has-beens, and legends that found their way through the halls of NBC Burbank in the mid to late 1970s. It is being called by Kirkus Reviews as a revealing and often delightful insider look at the heyday of network television. Shelley recalls the almost impossible to imagine situations behind the scenes amidst a who's who of 1970s entertainment culture. From a trip to see Elvis in Las Vegas that led Shelley to getting into the Page program, to literally breaking a leg and an encounter that brought her an indelible moment with a musical hero, to being privy to the secrets of Joan Rivers' feud with Johnny Carson, and to all the interpersonal, professional, and emotional connections forged by Shelley and her friends that would define this as the time of their lives. That's not, of course, counting stories about Andy Kaufman, Richard Pryor, Freddie Prinze, Gilda Radner, Robin Williams, Betty White, ex-Beatles, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, Red Fox, Frank Sinatra, John Travolta, and others still famous and some forgotten giants of film, television, and music. With direct honesty, this celebratory reminiscence really offers a unique glimpse into the beginning of a young woman's career amidst perhaps one of the most dynamic, colorful, and influential moments in recent cultural history. A longtime writer and TV game show production veteran, Supermarket Sweep, Shelley Herman is a Southern California native who has made a life in show business as a creator and performer, and also was a contestant on The Dating Game, eventually writing more than 1,000 hours of game shows as well. We're so excited to have an opportunity to have her here on the show to talk about the book. You see it on the screen there. Here is another close-up image of the book. You're going to want to get it. It is definitely, absolutely a page turner. And with that said, let's welcome Shelley to the show. Welcome, Shelley. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
That introduction, wow, I'm exhausted.
That's right. It's like a red carpet situation, right? I wish
It was
we had
a
a
lot of
plaque
fun.
or wish we had a plaque or a statue of some kind to give you. But you know what? We always say the show has a lot of light, love, and levity. And I said that in the early days of the pandemic. So what happened was I said light, love, and levity. And one time I said it too fast and I came out with the word levity. And when I said the word levity, the audience jumped on it and they said, "We're now your Levity Squad. You're Mr. Levity. This is
Oh,
Hall, and the guests are part of the Levity family. So we might not have a plaque or a statue, but you're a Levity on the Jim Masters Show Live. How's that?"
I accept that.
She Levity's it. So this is really exciting, and congratulations on the book. I know it's so well received and people are just really, really enjoying it. What was the inspiration for writing the book?
Well, I never thought of writing a book because I always thought just smart people wrote books. So I had nothing to do during the pandemic. And I have a group of people that I worked with at NBC, and we're still super close to this day. It's over 40 years. And every month we'd have birthday celebrations, we'd watch the award shows, we'd go to parties together. And I really missed seeing my friends. So when Zoom became a thing, we kind of opened up our little friendship circle to include some of the pages that we had worked with years ago that had moved out of the Los Angeles area. And more stories were being told. And people kept saying, somebody should write a book. Somebody should write a book. So it's like, I'll give it a shot. And that's how it came about.
That's very exciting. That's terrific. When you have an opportunity to do something like you have, which is to be a page, and I've had an opportunity to talk with so many people who started out as pages, it's quite a unique experience. How did that opportunity come your way early on?
Well, you talk about some of the people who were pages. On the back cover of my book, I have an endorsement from a friend of mine who was a page, Peter Marshall, the host of
Oh,
Hollywood Squares.
yes.
And he was 15 years old when he became a page. And at the time, it was just men that were allowed to be pages. He
Right.
called himself a page boy. But Regis Philbin was a page.
That's right.
Grant Tinker, Gene Rayburn, Chuck Barris, and more recently Aubrey Plaza. She was a page. I got very lucky getting the job because it's a very coveted entry-level position into the entertainment industry. They don't so much call it a page job. It's an executive recruiting program. So the object of being a page is to try to make connections within NBC so that you can hopefully rise within the ranks and have a job for the rest of your life.
Mm.
And what they require now, in case anybody has a pencil and paper, they need you to go online, fill out an application. Keep in mind, they get about 16,000 applications a year. Then they have you send in a 2-minute video, your resume, your CV. And then this is what I love about what they're doing now is if they think that you might be a good candidate for their program, they will fly you either to Los Angeles or New York. They pay for it, all expenses, because they realize not everybody can afford to fly to the city for an interview. And they'll help kind of put you up and establish you if they hire you for the job. Now, with all that said, less than 2% of the people get that far in the process, making it easier to get into Harvard
Yeah,
than it is to become an NBC page.
that's
So,
amazing.
yeah, no, I've got really lucky getting the job because I wasn't yet a college graduate, and they want you not only maybe to have a BA degree, but a master's even. And I was working at Sears in Canoga Park in the junior bazaar department. And one of the gals, her dad was a TV repairman,
Ah,
and he worked for Elvis.
oh boy.
And I keep thinking of like Elvis must be shooting out a lot of TV screens to have kept this guy employed. So,
Yeah.
so she said, "Hey, my dad can get us tickets to see Elvis in Vegas. Do you want to go?" So the 5 girls who worked in the junior bazaar department all piled into cars, and we drove to Vegas, about a 4.5, 5-hour drive, and we saw Elvis.
Mm.
And if you saw the Austin Butler movie, it was exactly like that. I was like, I'm into the Beatles. I'm not into Elvis as much. And I came away with such a huge respect for Elvis. And I'm like even getting goosebumps now thinking about his voice and what a frenzy that crowd was. And he was just a little bit heavy when I saw him at the time. So that was a little surprising. And he would have a scarf around his neck and he'd pat off some of the sweat, and women would come to the apron of the stage and take the scarf off of his neck. And that would be their souvenir. And some of them were bringing him jewels and roses. And it was the most amazing experience. So after the show, the three other girls took off. They wanted to go have fun. So I was with the girl, Janice, who was kind of the wallflower of the group. And we had cherry pie and ice cream and talked about our hopes and dreams. And I had mentioned to her that when I was in high school, I got a chance to go see a taping of the midnight special at NBC. And I saw these people standing around doing nothing, wearing ugly polyester uniforms, getting paid to listen to rock and roll music. And I thought, I can do that job. And Janice's mother, she said, my mother's best friend works at NBC. Let me see what I can do. And 2 weeks later, I had the job.
Talk about fast turnaround, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
That is incredible. Now, had you been a fan of, television and shows, and did you grow up on TV? Was that something that you had hoped to always enter into? I mean, when I was a kid, I always ran around with that Panasonic cassette recorder and the microphone, interviewing all of the relatives, and we did plays in the garage, in the backyard. I knew all the call letters. I knew all the anchors on the stations. I knew, who the different people were, and loved the jingles and the promos and just everything about the industry. So it was something that I was always interested in pretty much since childhood, and then went to college and did the whole thing, interning, and have been with it ever since. How about for you?
Well, when I grew up in Calabasas, it was like a one-horse town at the time. Now it's a very posh place to live, but we only got to watch TV if the antenna was blowing properly because it was such a rural area.
You had to head towards Los Angeles. Yeah.
With that said, I have a clipping in my treasures that I wrote a letter to TV Guide once asking how to get tickets to the Smothers Brothers show. I think I was 8 or 10 at the time. And that was the first time I was ever published. And of course they, did the little blurb about tickets are free, right to, TV City in Hollywood. So I was always fascinated with TV, and I was privileged to be at Agora High School at a time when we were kind of like free range students. And I got in with the drama department, and we learned so much. And as a female, I was given opportunities also about learning backstage craft and things like that. I had hammers and saws and I was climbing all over everything, but we did a production of Sound of Music. And because it was such a rural area, we had an amphitheater that had been carved out of the hillside. So when I, as one of the Von Trapp children, was escaping the Nazis, we actually were climbing up the side of a mountain to climb every mountain. So it sparked a lot of creativity in me as a child. Again, I didn't know anybody in show business, but I never thought there was anything else I should be doing. So I just kind of instinctually found ways to follow my passion.
That's really incredible. And it's inspiring for others too along the way who, might be considering entering these fields. It's changed a lot over the years, that's for sure as well. What are some of the other, in the book, you share so many wonderful stories. What are some of the other stories and tales from the book that you think people would really find fascinating and maybe even surprise them?
Well, kind of keeping on the theme of maybe how to get a job at NBC, or how to, get a job anywhere. Let's say that, because not everybody has the opportunity to be at such fabulous facilities to have a job. But I was really trying very hard to meet Dick Ebersol, who at the time was the the wonderkin of NBC, and he helped Lorne Michaels get Saturday Night Live on the air. He was the guy at NBC, and he had offices both in Burbank and New York. So I would call his secretary, and I couldn't get through to try to get an appointment to meet Dick, because I was sure that if he met me, that he would think I was a genius and I'd work for him forever, and my career would be set, because that's how a 20-year-old thinks. So I was driving home late one night, and it was pouring rain, and I'm listening to talk radio, and the host says, "And my next guest is Dick Ebersol." And I grabbed the steering wheel of my car, and I was like, "Argh!" And I got off the freeway, got to a payphone. I had like a fistful of quarters, and I just kept jamming them into the phone booth, and got the guy on the line and made up I'm going to ask a question about Gilda Radner or something, and got them on the phone, and "Hey, caller, what is your question for Dick Ebersol?" And I said, "Hi, my name is Shelley Herman, and I'm a page at NBC Burbank, and I've been trying to get an appointment with you, but your secretary wouldn't meet with me. So will you promise me on the air right now that you'll meet with me the next time you're in your office?"
That was like the FedEx commercial.
But I discovered through doing that, I call it putting on my Lucy Ricardo thinking cap. I find that if you can make people want to see you rather than have to see you, that your chances are better for trying to score a job, or at least a really good contact who can help you down the line.
Yes.
So I would, and don't do it in a way where you're like nudgy about it, just do it in a way that makes them smile.
You've had an opportunity, as I mentioned, to talk about a lot of different stories, and one of which, of course, the Johnny Carson, Joan Rivers situation. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I wasn't at NBC at the time, but I had privy to some private letters and spoke to a woman by the name of Dorothy, who was a good friend of Joan's, also her manager at the time. And there was a very colorful man who worked at NBC by the name of Jay Michaels. And he was in charge of the Page staff, but also talent relations within NBC. So if there's a particular press event that a celebrity was needed for, Jay would facilitate them flying out here, putting them up at a hotel, having a limo take them places. And Jay was a great guy. He was vulgar. He was sassy. He was somebody you could call at 3 a.m. and he'd get the job done. They don't make him like this anymore. And in part, they probably shouldn't make him this way anymore in a corporate environment. He had vulgar names for everybody. And if you didn't have a vulgar nickname, then you weren't in the in crowd. And I'm proud to say I had one, and I'm not going to say what it was.
She won't even give us the initials.
No. Because I don't know if you could get kicked off the internet, but this would get you kicked off the internet.
This would be the run.
So there was a letter that had been prepared that had a list of people who could be the possible successors to Johnny Carson. And there was a handwritten note on this memo that said, "You don't have a home here." Now, Dorothy saw this letter. Letterman's name wasn't on it. Leno's name wasn't on it. She remembers David Brenner's name was on it at the time. And Jay was known for writing outrageous letters to people. And this was probably a joke that took on a life of its own. And Joan's husband, Edgar, took it to Joan. Now, keep in mind, at this time, Johnny Carson owned The Tonight Show, and he contractually hired Joan to work for Carson Productions. She wasn't an NBC person. She was a Carson person. And it would have made sense to go to Johnny directly and, what the F is this memo all about? Because Johnny was nowhere near retiring at that point. There was no reason to have a memo like that. Peter LaSalle, who was one of the co-executive producers with Fred de Cordova, he said there was never a memo like this. Anything like that would have had to been run through him, and he never would have authorized it, because Joan and Peter were really good friends, and Edgar, they were all really good friends. So Joan decided to go rogue. She cut a deal with Fox, with Barry Diller, to have her own late night talk show. And you can't keep a secret in this town. Peter LaSalle found out, begged her not to do it. She took the deal. Edgar became executive producer, and Dorothy was in the room when Joan tried to call Johnny to tell him, and he picked up the phone and then hung it up right afterward. And they never spoke again. And the show only lasted 7 months that she did. And that's what started the infamous late night wars, because if you were going to do Joan's show, you wouldn't be able to do the Tonight Show. And Joan had been asked several times by Carson Enterprises, by Peter LaSalle, listen, we know you're pulling great numbers when you're guest hosting on Monday night, but you're getting a little vulgar. You're getting a little edgy. Our crowd is more Midwestern. Can you tone it down? And she was tired of people telling her what to do. So this is how she had her chance. And it never should have happened this way. And tragically, Edgar didn't live much longer after that.
No.
It was a very sad, terrible thing that never should have happened this way.
So do you feel Johnny Carson felt slighted, or he just felt like he gave her a break or an opportunity and she went to go head to head with him?
I think that's a fair assumption. He really adored her. I mean, up until Joan, the only women who had guest hosted were like Helen Reddy, Florence Henderson, Beverly Sills. It was all women singers. There wasn't any woman comic who had guest hosted. So Johnny not only didn't see her as a threat, he actually wanted her to thrive because he liked what she was doing. So I imagine there was a deep hurt there. Because again, they really did like each other.
Yeah. So it's, I guess, if you find the memo or hear about something like that, approach the person that you think might be involved in it, and that might have he might have said, no, I didn't write that, or that's not me, or what have you, might have
Or let's
solved it.
talk about it, and let's talk about it, resolve it, rather than going rogue on it.
Yeah, it's always been a tough thing, right? And I know I've seen in interviews before her passing, she was dumbfounded and confused by his reaction and why there was no response from that day forward.
Well, I think Joan was maybe a little railroaded into making her decision too, and I can see, out of respect to Johnny, especially when Johnny was still alive, why she didn't appear on the Tonight Show again. It was a respect thing. And then once Jimmy Fallon was doing it in New York, and it was just a whole different vibe and all different people. And sadly, I'm afraid if I threw a rock down Ventura Boulevard right now, I couldn't hit somebody who remembers that Johnny hosted the Tonight Show. It's
Really?
been a long time. There's people who don't remember Jay Leno hosted the Tonight Show. It's all Jimmy Fallon now.
Yeah, right. Wow. Don't even ask about Jackie Gleason or Ernie Kovacs
or Steve Allen or Jack Parr. Yeah.
No, Merv Griffin. Yeah. Mike Douglas. Yeah. Although we had somebody a couple of times as a guest, he's a good friend. John Davidson was here. Mm-hmm. And of course, you remember John. Yes. Yeah. I think he said he was the most, as far as a singer, in terms of being able to host that show for Johnny, the Tonight Show. He's in some sort of annals of history in that area, which is kind of exciting. But he's a great guy and a multi-talented guy as well on so many different levels. And, one of the things you do say is that there's nothing in the book that anyone should be ashamed of, because the lessons that were learned and the people that were met made us, who you guys are today, right? You had a lot of fun, and if you could, you do it all over again.
Absolutely. we had, like, we were kids in the candy store. I
Mm.
mean, we had
What
such
training ground too.
but we had access to people, and now everything, and rightly so, there's so much more security of getting in. I mean, it used to be we could just go into, I'll go into CBS, I'll go into ABC, I'll watch a taping of this or that, and you just, it's not as relaxed and as comfortable as it once was. And I mean, when we did the Tonight Show, we still had security concerns then. Whenever Johnny would do the monologue, we as the pages never were able to watch the monologue because we had our backs to Johnny and we were looking up into the stands to see if anybody had a weapon, if they were going to try to rush the stage. So for like $1.90 an hour, I was supposed to like take a bullet for Johnny, if something was going to happen.
Wow.
But now that, there's metal detectors and checking your purse and, a pint of blood in your firstborn child, it's so
Right.
much more different.
I can relate a little bit to that, hosting on PBS. And I remember way, way back, one of the stations in New York where we were doing it, they were airing a Peter, Paul, and Mary concert special. And they were getting bomb threats. They were getting called, the people that were volunteering their time to answer the phones and take support on behalf of the public television programming were being threatened on the phone by wacky people who were sending these notifications of what they wanted to do because they were not fans of the group. Crazy stuff. People don't realize sometimes it's crazy stuff.
Well, and also people were really sweet and they would bring, cookies and candies and things like that. And we had to just toss them because we didn't know what was in them.
True.
I'll tell you one really fabulous story in the book that involves baked goods. There was a lady, Sadie O'Sullivan, and she was kind of like, you might have heard there was a lady, Mrs. Miller, who used to sit in the audience all the time, like at Merv Griffin's show.
Yes.
And, yeah, and she was probably younger than me, but the way women dressed back in the day with the heavy coats and the
Looked much older.
yeah, she would come to the tapings all the time. So everybody knew Mrs. Miller, and we were always supposed to let her in, and just as a courtesy, we always let Mrs. Miller in. But Sadie O'Sullivan, who was 82 at the time I met her, was kind of a good luck charm for Red Fox and for the people who worked at Hollywood Squares. So we always gave her a bit of a courtesy. And she made cookies for the pages. And she was diabetic, and she prided herself on not using sugar when she made the cookies. And they were like hockey pucks. They were just awful, but we always thanked her and gave her a good seat. So one day, Sadie comes by Sanford and Son, and she said, "What's going on next door? It's stage one." And I said, "Oh, well, Frank Sinatra's doing the Tonight Show." And she said, "Well, Frank bailed me out of jail once." Said, "Oh, I don't know the story, Sadie."
Sit down. Let's get a cup of coffee. Yeah.
So even though her last name is O'Sullivan, she married, in her words, a drunken bum named O'Sullivan, but she was a Jewish woman. She stayed with him long enough to have her first child and then divorced. And Sadie saw in the news that there was going to be a rally of the American Nazi Party at a venue near her home. So she went over there and she hit a Nazi with her purse and she got arrested. So while she's being processed in a holding cell, one of the police comes up to her and says, "Okay, Sadie, you're free to go." And she says, "Who knows I'm here? Nobody knows. Who posted bail?" And she got a telegram that said, "Way to go, Sadie. Love, Francis Albert." And it was Frank Sinatra who bailed her out of jail.
Wow.
So I was like, "Oh, God, this is great, Sadie. Hold on." So just before taping Sanford and Son, I knock on Red Fox's dressing room door. And if you know your TV history, Red Fox had a kind of a prickly relationship with NBC.
Yeah.
Johnny Carson had a big bay window that was put in front of his office. Red wanted one in his. Red was notorious for not coming to rehearsals. Toward the end of Sanford and Son, he would just walk in the room, sit in a chair, and they'd have cue cards for him to read. That was his thing, and they catered to that. So when a perky little page knocked on the door, I don't think he was expecting to see me. And I said, I remember this so clearly. I had said to Red, "Do you know Frank Sinatra?" And he went, "Yeah." I said, "Do you guys like each other?" He said, "Yeah." So I told him the Sadie story. He held up taping of Sanford and Son, and he took Sadie over to meet Frank Sinatra. She got to thank him, and then brought Sadie back to the studio, and then Red went out and did Sanford and Son that evening.
Wow. That's amazing. He was quite a character, right? Funny, that just quite a character to go along with it on so many different levels. You also had opportunities to come across Andy Kaufman and Richard Pryor, of course, Freddie Prinze, Robin Williams. Tell us about some of those folks.
Okay, the first name I remember is Andy Kaufman. And Andy at the time was doing a variety show called Van Dyke and Company over on Stage 4. And Andy was just starting to break as a comic. He had done the Mighty Mouse routine on Saturday Night Live. And Carl Reiner's nephew was a man named George Shapiro, who became a personal manager and handled Andy, because Carl thought Andy was Carl Reiner loved Andy Kaufman. So he gave him to George to manage, and George later went on to be like Jerry Seinfeld's manager. You know, he became a big deal, and the nicest man in the world was George Shapiro. So I got to know Andy, you know, hanging out in the hallways and such. And one of the things he told me, he said, you know, my managers tell me I've got to do this sitcom. I don't want to do it. Just don't watch it. It's not going to be any good. Just don't waste your time. It was Taxi. And then the PS to that story is, many years later, I married one of the guys from Taxi. I married the guy who played John Burns on the first season of Taxi. His name's Randall Carver.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he has his Andy stories. I have mine. Andy, he would call me at home. I was still living at home at the time because I was, again, going to college, working as a page, you know, didn't have any money. And my mother would hear the last name of Kaufman and wanting to set her daughter up with a nice Jewish boy. Andy Kaufman's on the phone. And then I showed my mom his act and she backed off. He's a sweet man. I have only wonderful things to say about him. People say you knew Andy Kaufman. I sometimes question it myself, because he really, I would look in those beautiful blue eyes and he would talk and I would answer, and I could tell his mind was plotting something while all that was going on. And he liked to eat raw cashews. And I thought, well, I'll get along with him. I'll eat raw cashews too. And after you pop 2 or 3 of those in your mouth, it's like paste. So,
not recommended.
but I have a story in the book about how I did a bit with Andy at the Improv one night, and it was quite exhilarating and scary all at the same time. So
I would imagine, yeah, because sometimes you wouldn't know what direction he was going in, right? Was there a lot of it as ad lib happening on the spot?
no, he knew exactly what he was
knew
doing.
Exactly. He was very strategic.
He knew every beat of what he was going to do. No, it was perfectly
Executed.
choreographed, went exactly the way he wanted it to.
You also had an opportunity to come across Richard Pryor as well.
Yeah, that was really rough. When NBC hired Richard Pryor to do a variety show, the first audience was an overflowing crowd. And one of the pages had remarked that they must have dropped tickets from a helicopter all over Los Angeles. And there was like no way we could accommodate everyone for this. And then add to that, Richard said he wanted the first 3 rows of the audience filled with Black people. Now, we had people waiting 8 hours in line to see Richard who were not all Black. And we didn't want to have like a problem pulling people. So Paul Moody, who was a very good friend of Richard's, he was so smart. He went to the back of the line and he found people and just was like, shh, come this way, and ushered them in to the audience section so Richard would be happy. And then it turns out Richard was not feeling well and perhaps was over medicated. And the taping, which was supposed to start, I think at 5 o'clock, didn't begin till 11 o'clock. And people were waiting in the audience all this time. It was a bad situation anyway, because it was an overflow crowd. The fire marshals wanted to shut everything down, but everybody was treating this very carefully because they didn't want Richard to be upset. And they shot what became the Star Wars segment, which you can see on YouTube. And it's very unfunny. And it went till 2 a.m. The Pages were happy because they were getting like double and triple overtime for working at that point. But the next day, everyone working the show was called into the offices at NBC, and the lawyers were there, the police were there, the head of the Page staff, Jay Michaels, and they were like, what happened? What did this turn into? And sadly, he didn't do very many more shows after that. It was a complete disaster.
That's what a story. Again, all of these stories we're talking about, folks, in their various ways, shapes, and forms, are in this extraordinary book, which it really is page turner. And you need not be somebody who works in entertainment and Hollywood and New York and television and film stage or any of it. You might just be a fan of the celebrities, the stars, or just love to go behind the scenes, as our very special guest Shelley Herman does, in such a detailed way, but a unique way as well. How would you say, what was your approach to writing the book?
My approach was, I wanted it to be kind of episodic in nature, the kind of thing that if you're sitting by the pool or sitting down somewhere else reading, that you could get through a couple chapters and read the whole story. Now, with that said, I figured out there was a thread to the book that I had not anticipated. Right after I was hired to be a page, I took all the money I had at the time, which was $550, booked a Pan Am flight to London, and did one of those see London in 7-day kind of trips. And on the way home, a guy died on the plane. And he died while I was watching the Alfred Hitchcock movie Family Plot on the airplane. And the flight attendants were, is there a doctor? Is there a doctor on board the plane? And several people went scrambling, and unfortunately this man died. And while I was watching all of this, my first thought was, I can't wait till I retire because I'm going to see the world and do things. And then after this guy died, I was like, I'm not postponing gratification. I'm going to have fun as long as I can. So I turned the book into the publisher, Bear Manor Media. And I was at a yard sale later that afternoon, and it was the weekend that they had the funeral for Queen Elizabeth. And I started chatting up this guy who didn't look like the other people rummaging around the yard sale. And, sad about the Queen. Yeah, I was in London for her 25th anniversary Jubilee. And I went, I was too. He goes, the flyover, Buckingham Palace. Yes, it was great. And it was so hot. Oh, yes, our bus driver stopped and wanted to get ice, and there was no ice. That's right. And where did you stay? Kensington Hilton. I stayed at the Kensington Hilton. And I looked at him knowing the answer before I asked it. And I said, what flight were you on the way home? And he said, Pan Am. And in unison we said, and a guy died on the plane on the way home. This was 47 years ago. And I'm looking at this guy. He was one of the doctors who was tending to the guy who died on the plane. And I was like, why is this happening now? And it took me a while to figure out that, like my hero, Harry Chapin sings about, All My Life's a Circle. And everything had come full circle for me from when I began as a page to when I turned it into my publisher and dotted the I's and crossed the T's. And it made me feel good about writing the story and telling the stories of my friends, things that I experienced. So even though it was episodic in nature, it just shows you drop that little pebble in the water and the ripple effect of it, it all comes back. It was wonderful.
How long did it take to actually write it? When you first came up with the idea, the inspiration came your way, and then you started putting pen to paper. What was that process like? Was it quick? Or did it start really flowing, or did you take some breaks? What was that process like?
First of all, you're real cute to say pen and paper.
Yeah. No, if they don't know what who Carson was, they don't know what that is either.
Yeah. No, I took keyboard to Windows.
Cursive. What's cursive?
Yeah. Again, never thinking I was going to write a book. I had started writing a one-man show for my husband, Randy Carver, to perform. And I joined a writer's group. And then when the pandemic hit, it was like, well, there's no way he's going out and doing a one-man show for anytime soon. So I was already kind of in a little bit of a groove doing that. So the first story I wrote was, it's one of the naughty stories that's in the book. And I read it to the group, and we were doing it on Zoom at the time. And people are like, oh, you've got to keep going. You've got to keep going. I was like, really? And so I eventually just kind of started expanding what I was doing, reaching out to my other friends for stories, and had the book before I had a clue on what to do with it. I bought a book. It's Susan Shapiro, who wrote a book called The Book Bible, and that's available online. And she's a professor at NYU. She's a great woman, and I only met her yesterday for the first time. She lives in New York, and she was here in LA doing a personal appearance, but I bought her book and was communicating with her online. And I'm like going, what do I do? How do I do? What's a query tracker? I need to get an agent, and here's a list of how you can find agents. And she kind of helped shepherd me through it. And then once I was able to get a publisher, the people at Bear Manor Media were just wonderful. They snapped it right up. Then I had my dear friend Richard Hack, who has written, I think he's like 8 or 12 bestseller books. And I had Richard look at it for me, and he helped me cross the I's and dot the T's, or the other way around. And he encouraged me to keep going. And the writers group said, we know the stories tell us the feelings. And that's when it all came together.
That's really amazing. I do that too sometimes, cross the I's, dot the T's. For some reason, it just comes naturally for some reason every once in a while.
You know what? I'm looking at your backdrop that you have on your screen now. Look at the blouse I'm wearing.
See?
All My Life's a Circle, baby.
I tell you, right. And that's real. It's not a green screen. If I threw something back there, it would hit the wall. It's fantastic. I love it. Tell us, do a little Edward R. Murrow person to person. Tell us about the room you're in. There's a lot of cool things, including that typewriter.
Oh yeah, that was something that was my grand stepmother's. Is that a relationship? But they were going to throw it away when she passed away, and I went like, I don't know that I'll ever use it, but I want it. And it decorates. This is my office that you see here. Above my head is part of a snow globe collection that I have of over 450 snow globes. If I tilt up, that's a picture of many of my page friends. In the center, there's a man in a white shirt. That's Floyd Jackson. And Floyd was the shoe shine guy that had a station right out in front of Johnny Carson's Studio One. And it was considered good luck if you had your shoes shined by Floyd before he went to do the Tonight Show. And Floyd would go around in the morning and get the shoes from all the executives. And so if you were in the executive building at a certain time of day, you'd see a bunch of guys walking around in their socks while their shoes were getting shined. This is back here. That's my old Page uniform.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And when you look at the cover of the book, these are the same earrings. 47 years later, I can still fit into them. So I'm very proud of that accomplishment. And what else do I have in here? That's from a show that I did at the top there, that way. I did a show on HBO called Night Wrap with Chris Beard, and my friend Joe Farrago's in that picture. And an old radio. And that's a poster on the wall. I had produced an event at the TV Academy with my friend Bob Bowden. And it was to celebrate the 60th anniversary. This was fun. Bryan Cranston had just started doing Breaking Bad. And of course, I loved it. Who wouldn't? And I wanted to get him to come do the show because it would be like good promotion for it. And Brian's a wonderful man. So when I was researching him, I saw that we're the same age. We went to the same elementary school together. So I told that to his assistant, and I said, find out where Brian was the day John Kennedy was killed, because if he was in the 4th grade, we were in the same class at the same time. So Brian shows up to the event, and everybody's going, Brian's looking for you. Brian's looking for you. And I'm thinking, oh, there's some kind of disaster going on. I have to put out a fire. And I see Brian, and he comes up to me and he puts his arms on my shoulders and he goes, Shelley Herman, you can't possibly be in my grade because you look too young. And I said, cut the crap. Where were you when John Kennedy was killed?
Right.
And he said, I was homesick that day. But no, he was in my class. So we knew each other way back when. Again, all my life's a circle. So
It is. It really, really is, which is it's extraordinary. The book, My Peacock Tale: Secrets of an NBC Page, described as a funny, sexy, gossipy, celebrity-filled memoir with real-life, never-before-told stories, and again set against that backdrop of the famous NBC Burbank and studios in the mid-70s. And you've had an opportunity when you're on a Page, you've got this VIP access to some of the biggest stars, which is really amazing, including people like Betty White.
Oh, yeah. Betty, when I was in college working as a Page, I was able to secure an internship working for a game show production company. And one of the shows they were producing was one of my favorite shows to this day, called The Liars Club. And the premise of that was you get an object, and there'd be 4 celebrities, and they'd say, well, this is a frosted mug to drink iced tea out of. And somebody else might say, well, this is a special container that they need to put specimens in to determine if somebody's pregnant, whatever it is. You'd come up with a great
series. Yeah.
So Betty loved the show, constantly loved those stories. And it was so sweet. She, at the time, her mom was still alive, and she would bring her mom to the studio. Now, keep in mind, most people don't bring their parents to work with them, but she'd come to watch her daughter perform and her son-in-law, Alan Ludden. And before they'd come to the studio, Betty and she would both go to the Elizabeth Arden Salon in Beverly Hills. They'd get their hair done the same way. They'd get their nails filed the same way, and they'd have the same polish. And she'd bring her to see the show. It was so sweet. And I'm going to do a little plug-a-rooney here. In 2025, there is going to be a new wing added to the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York, that is going to be the National Game Show Archive. It's going to be a 5,000 square foot facility dedicated simply to television game shows. My dear friend Bob Bowden, along with Adam Nedeff, who's an author of many, many books about the history of game shows, they, along with Chris Bench, are curating items. So if any of your listeners have things they want to donate, get a nice tax write-off. We're curating items. And what made me think of this is when Betty passed away, I reached out to her assistant and I said, listen, I know you're probably going to have an auction, but before you start throwing away what you think is game show crap, would you consider donating it to this game show museum? And her assistant gave us letters and papers and photos from both she and Alan Ludden. And then she very generously said, would you like one of Betty's Emmys? Yeah. So
That's
right now,
incredible.
from what I understand, is if you go to the museum, which is open now with, it has video games, it has all kinds of children's toys. It's a beautiful museum. But right now there's Betty's Emmy in the foyer and it says coming soon, National Game Show Archive.
How cool is that, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. I've always loved game shows, and I've always admired all the different hosts. I even competed with Sony, and I think it's Synergy Group and Game Show Network. They had come to the Northeast, and there was about, I don't know, 5,000-6,000 people from all walks of life who, there was this mention that colleagues of mine at one of the stations had mentioned, hey, the Game Show Network is coming to town. And this is when they were in the early stages. So they were trying to get on cable systems.
Oh,
So they
yeah.
were going across the country to various markets and cities. And I went and got narrowed down to like 3 out of 5,000 random people from all over who came. And it was such a great experience because we were on stage. In the very beginning, you had to go on stage in front of the judges. Mark Summers was one of the judges, and there were others.
And Mark Summers is a dear friend. He's also on the back of the book endorsing the book. I love Mark Summers.
Tell him about our show. I would love to chat with him on the Jim Master Show. It would be an awesome conversation.
He's doing his one-man show right now on the East Coast. I think
Yes,
he's
he
done.
is.
Yeah. But of course, I'll drop him a note.
So what they did was they had the folks from Sony, from Game Show Network, Synergy Group. Mark was there and others, and they were lined up, and they were just bringing people in the very beginning just to see if they can even say their name on stage and answer just 1 or 2 quick questions. And they were able to filter a lot of people out just by that. And then it got down to a lot of different scenarios that day. You were narrowed down, and then you did have to come back another day and look the part. And they actually had a mock set with buzzers and contestants, and it was really cool. And I remember one of the buzzers didn't work with one of the contestants, and I had the sport coat on and the whole bit. And I love to use humor as well. And I just said something that I guess resonated with the judges and everybody there, because I love ad lib. I've done years of television and radio where we've been in ad lib situations. So this was perfect. And I forget the comment, but it was something that got the contestant laughing. The audience that they had brought in was laughing, everybody. And it was just a great experience. I got a Sony 27-inch television, a beautiful letter from Game Show Network. And I remember the person that did get selected. It was a female host, and they were really trying to build that up because there weren't a lot at the time. And I think she came from Boston, and she moved out west to LA to do a show, and she's married with children at the time, and she brought them all out. But the show was canceled in 30 days. So it was that's part of she gave up everything in Boston, the job, and went big opportunity, but it had been canceled. So, but yeah, really. What was the entree into game shows for you?
Well, again, just kind of stumbling into things. I wanted to have a free vacation. I was 17. I tried out for the dating game, and actually, they let me do the show twice. I picked the guys each time. The first time I went to San Diego, which is about a 2-hour drive from here. It was a lovely trip, but not a big deal. And the second one, they go, and you won a trip to the Bahamas. And I hugged the guy that I had just won. And I whispered in his ear, "Where are the Bahamas?" I had no idea.
Did you get a year's supply of rice-a-roni too?
No, but I did get some lovely ship and shore blouses.
Ah,
And so that's how I met the Chuck Barris people.
yes,
So
Gong
that,
Show and all. Yeah.
yeah, so that was 72, 73, and then I became a page in 76. So I knew some of these people because they had, a week before I got there, just started the Gong Show, and they were taping it there. And Chuck to me was always like a very protective uncle or a big brother. As goofy and crazy as everybody says he is, he had a heart of gold, so smart, so caring. And I kind of got into doing some of the game show run throughs that they would do, like what kind of like, mock-ups of game shows to see what worked, what doesn't work, finding hosts for the show. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that when you do a game show, it's not like, okay, we sit around our living room and then we have a show. I mean,
No.
what kind of questions are you going to have? Are you going to have true, false, trivia based, multiple choice? Is it going to be, like a Liars Club where it's telling little stories? How do you stack a show to build up the most dramatic value? Where do you find a host who can keep all this stuff in their head? Because there's constantly, if he wins, you do this. If you lose, you do that. And it's quite an ordeal. And very few people can do it well. And that's why so many people who had done radio,
Yeah.
Wayne Martindale, Bob Eubanks, Jeff Edwards,
Yes.
Gene Rayburn, they all started in radio and did live shows and knew how to think on their feet. So that's why those people came about. Now it's mostly people who are influencers or movie stars, like Elizabeth Banks had done Press Your Luck.
Yeah, you're seeing more your Michael Strahan doing the shows on ABC now, and well, interesting. Ryan Seacrest picked to replace Pat Sajak on the Wheel of Fortune. You like that?
Couldn't find a better guy.
I agree. I think he's so well trained as a broadcaster, as a host, and under the tutelage of like the Merv Griffins and the Dick Clarks, you can't go wrong. But has really put the time in and been steadfast. So when I heard that they selected Ryan, the whole world wanted that job, as they also wanted the Price is Right job, and they also wanted to buy the Brady Bunch house.
Which is just around the corner.
Which is just, yeah, I got to, when I was on a TV shoot out there, I said, we've got to go find it. And a couple of my friends are at HGTV and they were involved in the renovation process, and got to see it as it was happening. And then when I was there, I said, I also have to go up to Pasadena because I want to see the house that was used in Family with Seda Thompson, James Broderick, Christy McNichol, and Gary Frank and Meredith Baxter Burney and Quinn Cummings. And that beautiful house that's still there in Pasadena that was used, I guess, not only for Family, the Aaron Spelling drama on ABC in the late 70s, early 80s, but other movies and other things as well. You're surrounded by a lot of the TV houses.
Well, and I have a Christy McNichol story in my book, if you're a big fan of Family. When I was a page at NBC, I saw this guy standing in the hallway, and he had a cane, and he looked kind of bent over a little bit. And I offered to get him a chair, and he goes, no, I just want to stand up here. My client is on the Tonight Show, and I've got to take her to Disneyland after this because Space Mountain just opened. And I said, who's your client? He says,
that wouldn't be Phyllis Diller.
No. He says, no, it's Christy McNichol.
Yeah.
And I said, did you call ahead at all to Disneyland to tell him that she was coming? And he went, no. And Space Mountain, it would have been like a 5-hour wait to get on it at that time. So I just got on the phones in the hallway because I was bored, and they were doing the Tonight Show. They didn't need me. And I got the head of security at Disneyland on the phone. And I said, you don't understand. If you don't have security to greet Miss McNichol when she arrives, there could be a mob scene, and we wouldn't want that to happen, would we? I'm 20 years old. I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about. And so I got a name, and I gave it to the guy. And I said, when you get to Disneyland, ask for so-and-so, and you'll have VIP treatment. So the guy said, I owe you a bottle of Dom Perignon champagne. And I said, I don't drink, save your money. Because I'm thinking this guy probably doesn't have 2 cents to rub together. He gave me his business card. They took off. The guy was Jay Bernstein, who would go on to be the manager for Farrah Fawcett, Suzanne Summers, Linda Evans. The list goes on and on. So when there was a writer's strike many years later, I called the number on the card, got Jay's assistant, told her the story. Jay got on the phone immediately. He says, I've been looking for you. Will you come work for me?
Wow.
And during a writer's strike, I got a job working for Jay Bernstein. So Jay sadly has passed away.
Yeah.
I'm at my business manager's office. Chris McNichol comes in. I said, Chris, I wrote a book. I've told a story in the book. Let me ask you, do you remember going to Space Mountain? And she told me the whole thing. Yeah, this guard came and they took us in a golf cart. And I said, I did that. I did that for you.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I saw her at the Hollywood Autograph Show about 2 weeks ago. And I have a picture of the two of us where she's holding my book. So again, all my life's a circle.
It really is, right?
Yeah.
God, that's incredible. Even, and we were showing the website, mypeacocktale.com. Again, www.mypeacocktale.com to get the book and more. And also Amazon and where books are sold is really fantastic. You're going to want to pick it up, gang. Alfred Hitchcock as well, huh?
Wow. Yeah. I've been asked before, if you could go back and do one day that in your life as a page, and this would have been it because I got to pick up Emma Jean Coca and Sid Caesar and bring them to the Emmy Awards. And they were a big surprise guest, so we got to be backstage with them. And Emma Jean was, and Sid was like, oh, she won't shut up.
Yeah.
And she
very good impressions of both.
She was bragging that the dress she was wearing, she had bought in the 50s and she could still fit into it. And his tuxedo was a little tattered looking, but being somebody who appreciates comedy and these two people, it was fabulous. So they went out and presented their Emmy Awards as a surprise guest. And as soon as Emma Jean came off stage, the whole back of her dress busted open. And it was so threadbare. And Sid was so sweet. He put his tuxedo jacket over her shoulders, and I escorted them back to their limousine, and they left. So just when I thought my job was done, another limousine pulled up, and it was Alfred Hitchcock. And he was another surprise guest. So my friend Jeff Garrett and I, we grabbed Mr. Hitchcock and physically holding him up because he was very old and very slow.
Yeah.
And we had to get him to his place on stage before the curtain came up for his big reveal. Now, I had done my senior paper on Hitchcock. So as you can tell, I'm not shy. So I kept thinking, I want to talk to him. What do I say? But no, I've got to be a professional. So as I'm holding him, he turns to me and he says, "You're doing a very good job." And I said, "I did my senior paper on you. Ask me anything about you." And he gave me like a little wink and a smile, and we got him to his spot backstage. And Jeff and I ran off stage. The curtain came up, and there was Alfred Hitchcock.
Holy cow. That's incredible. Wow. These stories are really something, Shelley. And like I said, the book is a true page turner. You mentioned Harry Chapin, Johnny Cash, Ringo Starr, Donald Trump, John Travolta, Paul McCartney, Bob Hope. Now, it says also that there's a good amount of sex and also stories of unwanted sexual advances made on the pages, both men and women as well.
Yeah, I mean, we hear a lot of Me Too stories about women who've come forward, but a couple of the men that I spoke to told me, especially when they were doing the limousine runs with the celebrities in the back of the limousines, that some of the male celebrities came on to some of the male pages. But there was even a time when Bill Cosby used to co-host the Tonight Show, guest host the Tonight Show, that I was really upset because it seemed only the guys were able to work on that show when Mr. Cosby was there. And I marched into Eba Hawkins. She was the head of the Page staff. And I said, why is it just the guys get to work on it? Why don't the women? And she said, oh, it was company policy. Bill Cosby only wants men to work on the show. They knew. They were just protecting the women pages. And eventually it came down to when the production assistants from the Tonight Show would have to go down there to give him his notes or to see if he, if he needed any beverages or, whatever before going on. Eventually the girls who worked on the Tonight Show were told not to go there anymore. And then eventually the guys who were there were told not to go there anymore because he wasn't appropriate while he was there. And one of the pages was a young Asian woman, and she went up to some of the male page and she says, I got to talk to Bill Cosby and he really sees a lot of potential in me. And he's going to be up in San Francisco this weekend and he wants to fly me up there so we can continue the talk. And the guys were like, no. So even back then there was that. I had a very uncomfortable, horrible encounter with McLean Stevenson, which, like so many people, I'm imagining men, but most of the women friends I know, there's a certain point where you say to yourself, what did I do wrong? And it took me writing this book to realize I didn't do anything wrong. He just was trying to take advantage of me and an opportunity, but it's detailed more in the book. But the good sex stuff that's in the book is really good sex. Yeah. Thank you.
There you go, folks.
And also,
said by the author.
I also have to say, I changed the names of the men because I don't think it's fair that their wives or children get any shrapnel from the book.
Point, right? Exactly.
Yeah, it's long ago, and it was fun.
How did you? There you are. She's actually on the cover right there behind Johnny Carson. How'd you come up with the cover?
Well, I got the name first, and I was watching some Saturday morning show. It might have been like a rerun of a Jack Hanna kind of show. Oh, yeah. And there were peacocks there, and they said, and look at the peacock tails. And I went, bing, change it from TAIL to TALE. So once I had the name set and I went on GoDaddy and found I could get the domain name, and they didn't, I could get it on Instagram. I could get it on Facebook. I was like, okay, we got the name. And then one of the things that's a trademark of the Tonight Show is what they would call the peacock curtain. And that's the curtain that Johnny would step out from every night to do his monologue. So the big secret is that's not the actual curtain. I had a graphic artist that I worked with by the name of Chad Essman, and he recreated the curtain because the photos that I had from my own personal collection weren't quite as vivid as the one that he recreated for the cover. And I think it looks marvelous. Oh,
it looks fantastic. Yeah, it's it really pops. When I first saw it, I was like, this grabs you on so many different levels. Really, do you stay in touch with the other pages? I mean, it is like a showbiz exclusive sorority or fraternity on many levels, I would imagine, right, Shelley?
I am so blessed to have met these people when I did. It was a very formative time of my life. A couple of my friends had already been out in the world a little more than me. Christine Gallagher, who is a page with me, had already been a page in New York briefly. She'd worked for Barbara Walters, and she came out here looking to continue her career, but she already knew stuff I didn't know. And of course, a lot of the other people I worked with did have higher educations at that point and were much more sophisticated. So we all really bonded together. And and we were in the trenches together a lot. I mean, I tell everybody they should take an improv comedy class, because whatever job that you're doing, you have to think on your feet, and you have to put fires out all over the place. And we banded together. There wasn't jealousy about, oh, so and so got the job, or it's cutthroat this, or none of that happened when I was there. And I'm doing a book signing, and several of the pages are coming to tell their stories the way I told them in the book. But it's like it's going to be like, this is your life. Is
Yeah.
what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
And our mutual friend Jim Colucci is going to be hosting this one particular
Who
evening.
was a guest on our show. Fabulous. Yeah.
And I'm so looking forward to it, because it'll be kind of like our little page prom when this is over. So I'm so grateful to them. I value their friendships. I value their humor. And we have different strata of pages too, because if you're an original page, you're a page.
Mm-hmm.
If you married one of the pages or dated them, you're a page in law. And if you had been married to one of the pages or had dated a page and you're no longer with them, you're a page adjacent. So
A page adjacent.
there's this one guy, Steve Goldstein. Steve is fabulous. He met Dinah and dated her for a while. Didn't work out, but we love Steve. Dinah's now married to a great guy, Larry. Steve's married to Jennifer, but we still all hang around together. But Dinah got Steve backstage to meet Paul McCartney. So connections. And Steve Goldstein, he's a fabulous guy in his own right. He's written several books called Beneath Los Angeles, and it's books of where famous people are buried in Los Angeles and the backstories to their lives. And some of them are like famous, some of them are infamous. And Steve and his friends have done things like they got a monument for Hattie McDaniel at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, because at the time of her passing, it was a restricted cemetery and Black people weren't allowed in. So they got her a monument. They got one for Toto.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy in his own right too, but he's a page adjacent.
Page adjacent. Did being a page at all sour or disappoint you at all, sour your experience in reveling in the entertainment industry and all these celebrities and stars? I mean, you got a chance to see them at their best, and then sometimes when the days weren't going so well. How did it shape? Because you're still in the industry, you work in the industry. It didn't cause you to go in another direction. How did it enhance or, affect your vision and even your approach to the industry, having been a page?
I love you asking that question, because on this journey of being a page and discovering who we are, what we're going to become, you learn what not to do. And those are really valuable lessons to take with yourself in life too. So even though there might have been some embarrassing moments or things that were done. I worked for a production company at one time, and there was something that was done that wasn't quite on the up and up. And I learned that you can't be greedy about something just to try to get a TV show done. You have to do it properly. So yeah, I got involved with something that that was really, I thought my career was going to be over, and thankfully it wasn't, because I was honest about things. And
Right.
by the time the Fox lawyers got to me, the people said, just tell the truth. Just don't even try to. And I couldn't cover up anything. I didn't know anything wrong was being done, but I got sucked into it.
Yeah.
But you also know that treat everybody nice. That's the other lesson too, because the pages do know who was a jerk, who was a drunk. And that lesson helps a lot too.
Exactly right. You could have titled it that, Jerks and Drunks, too. Maybe that'll be the follow-up.
There you go. Thanks for my title. Let me go on GoDaddy.
Jerks and Drunks. That's right. Dot the T, cross the I. Why do you love the industry? Obviously you do. I do. I've been in it a long time. Why do you love it? Why does it keep calling your name?
I don't know that I ever thought of doing anything else. My mother always said, get your degree and become a teacher so you have something to fall back on. Another good tip, never have something to fall back on so you can keep pursuing what it is that you want to do and what you think you're about. So I have applied what I've learned in the industry in doing civilian jobs every once in a while as survival jobs. But I think the same reason a teacher goes into becoming a teacher, they probably find that there's a certain fulfillment that they get out of it. I just know that it's something I can do. I couldn't be an accountant. Ooh, God, no. No, there's certain things I can't process, but I can process showbiz, and I like the idea that whatever I'm involved with this, that when the project's over, hopefully somebody's going to have great stories to tell their grandchildren someday.
It's really incredible. Have you heard from any of the families or the stars, themselves, the ones that remain, in reference to the book? Have they read it? Have they had, feedback?
I wrote this book as kind of a love letter to my friends. And I didn't really expect this overwhelming sense of gratitude that people have for me writing all this stuff down. And some people have said to me oh, well, there's specifically, I've got, he's no longer alive, but there's two women that I worked with who both knew Freddie Prinze. And one knew him one way, one knew him another way. And when I put the two of them together after I had interviewed them about their stories and they started chatting, it helped both of them kind of get a bit of a resolution about his tragic death. And he wasn't the guy I thought he was. He wasn't the guy. And it wasn't anything perverted or sexual or anything like that. It's just, they just knew different aspects of him. So some of that's coming around. I haven't had anybody say to me, or maybe I just have friends that are real polite, what have you gone and done? It's everybody's just really happy that these stories are out there. And as Brandon Tartikoff said with the title of his autobiography, it really was the last great ride in show business. And a lot of people have captured the 60s and the 50s, but I don't think anybody touched this area of the mid 70s yet. It's kind of like Sex and the City meets Mad Men.
Right.
It's a time that was magical and wonderful when it happened, but we'll never see it again.
No. Yeah, they look at Television City is gone, CBS Television City, that iconic place. And aren't some of those studios at NBC?
It's gone, but it's not gone, because what they're doing there is the buildings like where Carol Burnett and Price is Right, and Mother's Brothers
Family, and
those buildings are going to remain. There's
right.
a few newer studios that are going to be torn down, but they're allegedly spending $700 million to make it like a mixed use facility. So it'll be studios, shopping, and they're going to put condos above it and attach it to the Grove Farmers Market area.
So keep the history intact.
Yeah. So, but the traffic's going to be awful. That's the problem that can't ever be solved with that. But no, NBC Burbank is no more. It is now incorporated into Universal Studios.
Right.
And also that means that the Pages don't do tours out here in Los Angeles because Universal has its own tourist attraction. And if you're a Page here on the West Coast, what they do is they rotate you to different divisions within the corporate structure of NBC. So you might work on something at Bravo Channel for 3 months, or press and publicity at NBC. And within those different 3-month periods of time, that's how you get to network with people.
What do you hope people are left with My Peacock Tale?
I want them to have a good laugh. I want them to get like kind of a warm, fuzzy feeling of, oh yeah, that's what it was like. Or, man, I wish I would have been there. And more importantly, I want somebody to buy it as a TV series.
You heard it here. That would be fantastic, huh?
Yeah. I think, Tina Fey did an exquisite job with 30 Rock, but it was a little more
Yeah.
fanciful
Yeah.
than the real experience. And I really think that a story about a girl trying to navigate through showbiz that way hasn't been told like this before. And I think it's really valuable for young women to kind of see some of these experiences and know that, I know this sounds so silly now, but you can dream to do these jobs. You don't have to say like, I hope to be so and so's assistant someday. Be the person. I mean, that was kind of what my hope was always, to be with somebody's assistant. But eventually I realized, oh, I can dare to dream that next step. I mean, there was my friend Janet Greek helped me with something once where I had broken my leg and I was put in the story department reading scripts to see if there was anything that might be good for a TV movie. So I thought, well, while I'm laid up here, I'm going to take a shorthand class because that'll help my career. And after 2 days of the shorthand class, I was like, I can't do this. And I was crying. And she came over to me and she said, what's the deal? And I said, I'll never be an executive at NBC. I can't do shorthand. And she said, never learn to do a job you don't want to do.
So true. What great sage advice that is, huh?
Yeah. And I figured, well, Dick Ebersol probably doesn't know shorthand. So yeah, I'll be okay not knowing shorthand.
That is something. This really is something else, this book. And again, we really appreciate you coming on the Jim Masters Show live series to celebrate it, but also celebrate the industry and the people that you've had an opportunity to work with, the fellow pages, which again, when you hear NBC Page, there's so many great stories out there. And the fact that you've put it all together and compiled it and, you're sharing it with all of us, I think it's really fantastic. And, it is an amazing industry: television, radio, stage, film, and all of the hours and hours and years of content. And, during the craziness of the pandemic, so many people were going back in time to all the nostalgic shows. They wanted to watch the Dick Van Dyke shows and even the Carson reruns and everything because it makes you feel good. And I think that the fact that you've been in it so long and you've had and continue to have such an illustrious career in the industry, and of course, it's so much involvement with the game shows as well. It's just a testament to who you are. You love what you do. You're passionate about it, and you're sharing these incredible behind-the-scenes stories with the world. And I wish you continued success, Shelley. And I hope that you'll be back again. We'll keep, as we always say, the porch light open for you here and on for you. And I really hope the show met whatever expectations had. Like I said, we do sort of the Carson Cabot sort of Merv, Mike Douglas conversations, maybe with a modern twist and vibe here, and bringing back the old school conversational style. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had much of a good time with me as much as I have with you.
I had a great time. And if you ever want me to wrangle a couple pages to come on the next time too, we could always do that.
Absolutely. That would be an honor and a pleasure. And so you got that book signing, like you said, coming up. What else is happening for you?
I'm traveling to a few different cities to do some book signings also, with the eventual goal. I hope this is going to happen. There's a rumor there's going to be a 90th Page reunion in New York. I don't know anything official about it.
Ooh, that's great. That's over here on the East Coast. Yeah.
I would very much love to. I've taken the tour of 30 Rock. I would very much like to meet the people that are there and some of the people that might come in for the reunion. And that would be the cherry on the sundae for me on this. I would love for that reunion to happen and to go back there.
Well, it's definitely keep me posted on that because that's right in our area here. And again, yeah, spread the word about the Jim Masters Show live series. You know, other folks you think would like to pop on. And you are a real true delight and a great conversationalist. And this was so fun. And I was so looking forward to welcoming you to our show, Shelley. And I wish you again continued success. Good luck with the book, the signings. I know it's a labor of love. It's a form of a memoir for you as well. So there's a lot of your heart and soul in it. And we encourage folks to get it. My Peacock Tale, Secrets of an NBC Page. And don't worry, folks. She didn't tell you the whole book on this episode of the Jim Masters Show. There is so much more. Pun intended, it's a page turner. And you're the best. Thanks for stopping by the show. Truly enjoyed it. And again, I hope you did as well, my friend.
Thank you so much, Jim.
You are very, very welcome. You take care now, okay? Cheers. Shelley Herman here on the Jim Masters Show live series. Hey, gang, we also want to show you something, which is a little trailer, like a little clip promoting the book as well. Let's bring that up right here on the screen. There it is. And let's take a look at it. Something really cool. Tells you a little bit more about the book itself. And here it is. So cool, huh? Absolutely. A little preview there of the book itself and some cool letters and photos and things that Shelley has accumulated in her illustrious career in entertainment in Hollywood. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, the name of the book we will show you once again. We'll pull that up here for you. Now you actually know behind the scenes about the cover itself and the beautiful curtains. Yes, here we go. There you go. It is by Peacock Tale, Secrets of an NBC Page. And that is Shelley on the cover there on the left, right behind Johnny Carson. It was an awesome pleasure to have Shelley as a guest here on the show. And you got a chance. If you always heard Page, NBC Page, what does a page do? What's a page about? What is it? I keep hearing it. What is it all about? Well, now you know a little bit more about it and some of the extraordinary stories that have happened. Really, it was like VIP access for the celebrities, all of the shows, the networks, and access to them in ways that so many people who are fans or even working in the industry don't get a chance to have access to. What a great story and what a great guest, huh? Shelley Herman joining us live from LA, from Hollywood, from Tinseltown. And wouldn't that be great if they do have that 90th gathering of all the pages in New York? We'll keep you posted on that. Shelley's going to stay in touch with us. That would be cool to celebrate that as well, huh? Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Jim Masters Show Live Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show Series. You know, we just passed 3 years and we have done almost 1,000 episodes of we're just shy of 1,000 episodes of our series in just 3 years, with guests from Broadway and Hollywood, television, film, music, stage, culinary arts, sports, comedy, inspiration, health and wellness, science and nature, you name it. And we absolutely love bringing it all to you. So here's a little homework for you. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, like on our YouTube channel. Yeah, there's a thumbs up icon. The YouTube channel is Jim Masters TV, where all the episodes are archived. Leave a comment for us too if you enjoyed this. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV, where you can access all of the great episodes and enjoy them. And that'll make you part of the Lovity family here at the Jim Masters Show Live as well. And it lets us know you enjoy all the content, all these extraordinary conversations we have with some of your favorite celebrities and guests of all kinds from all around the world, as we do have an international audience. If this was your first time watching, thanks so much for stopping by. It was a true treat and pleasure to have you with us, and we invite you to join us again as we continue to deliver great conversations and content in the style that we do here at the Jim Masters Show Live. And thanks for all the great comments, guys. You folks have been fantastic, commenting throughout and celebrating the conversation we've had with Shelley here on the show. We appreciate that so very much. Now, around here, you guys know we don't say goodbye. We say see you later. Ciao, cheers, shalom, sayonara, hasta la vista. We say moi loop. We say slancha. We say cheerio. You know, sometimes it's hard to remember them all. The list has grown exponentially with the see you laters. We don't say goodbye because we always welcome you to stop by for another great episode and some more fun here on the Jim Masters Show Live series. We don't say goodbye as well because, we love having you here. And it's always a pleasure and an honor to have you with us, watching and enjoying and sharing the links on your social media and celebrating everything that we do here at the Jim Masters Show Live. So for all of us here, thanks for being with us. We'll see you on the next episode. Like, comment, subscribe, share the links on your social media. And thanks so much for joining us. We love you all. Take care and be well. Cheers.